First off, man, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on the show, brother.
Man, I'm great, man. It's a beautiful day in Atlanta, and I'm happy to be here. I appreciate it, JD.
Dude, 100%. So before we get into all the talk about ball, which we're going to do here in just a matter of moments, tell the folks about your journey to On3. You were at 24/7 for a long time. I know you have deep Auburn ties, and now covering the national scene recruiting, doing the 5-Star Flex show on On3 Recruits channel, man. Just tell the people just kind of who you are and what you got cooking over there.
Well, my name is Phillip Dukes, a.k.a. Dukes the Scoop. Got the nickname from just basically having the scoop. Started out as a guy on a message board, kind of built my following on Twitter. Parlayed that into a paid job at 24/7. Really put in a lot of work over the last couple of years. Parlayed my relationships in Atlanta to become a national analyst. And On3 saw a future with me. I saw the same, and we had the same vision. Now I'm here.
Man, from the jump, when we got to get together and I got to hear about what you're going to be doing with 5-Star Flex and your relationships with all these different recruits, I was like, man, this is a no-brainer. I mean, I feel like we got ourselves a 5-Star plus and Phillip Dukes joining On3.
Oh, man.
So talk about the 5-Star Flex a little bit. You've already had a few episodes out with some high-profile guys like Naeem Offord. I know you sat down with a couple guys at Buford. What's the overall vision behind that show and just kind of what you have cooking over there?
The vision for the 5-Star Flex is somewhere, well, the tagline is basically where the ranking isn't just what a 5-star is, it's the mentality. So guys who have a 5-star mentality is what I want to showcase. Guys who get up and do the extra work, guys who come from the struggle, who quote unquote get it out of the mud. Also the guys who may not have had a rough upbringing, but really care about football in a way that they want to come on the show and flex who they are. And that's what the show is about. We're not leaving kids at where you're going to school and that's all. We want to get in and find out who you are. Now, we're going to talk recruiting because that's what we're here for. But it's a platform for guys to be able to show who they are. And you never know, in this landscape, it could potentially land you some NIL or branding type deals. So it's really a show for the guys, about the guys, for the guys.
I feel like it's the perfect show for where modern college football is at and where recruiting is at, where like who these guys are as players is becoming more and more important and becoming more players and people more and more important and more center stage with how they can brand themselves and NIL and all those things. You've got a chance to talk to a lot of high-profile guys, like I already said. Who are some of the schools that continue to come up in these guys' recruitment? I know that there's a lot of, usual suspects. LSU is the top school in 2025 right now in the On3 industry team recruiting rankings. But who are some of the schools that continue to make the right push for some of these top guys?
I think a school in the Southeast that's making a huge push that I've had, if I've interviewed maybe 9 guys, all of them haven't released, but I've had about 9 interviews in the past week and a half. And Oregon has been in at least 5 of them. And these are all 4-star or higher guys. But Oregon is making a very big push in the Southeast. I had one guy who was in Martellus Carter, who's the #1 player in Kentucky, said that Oregon visited them twice. And the father, who was also on the show, was saying you have to be very intentional about coming to Paducah, Kentucky to recruit a guy. And being able to see Dan Lannon in that capacity has really influenced him and more kids in the area. Naeem Offord, he's solidly committed to Ohio State, but he literally on the show said that's one place I have to visit is Oregon. I think Oregon they really got it going right now, and they're able to recruit with a national imprint, which I think is huge, being such a polar opposite on the Pacific Northwest.
I was going to say that brand, man, like for this generation of kids, they grew up seeing Oregon as being one of those players nationally in college football. Like they saw Marcus Mariota win the Heisman. They saw them play for a national championship. They've seen them win Rose Bowls. How much is that Oregon brand carrying weight for these kids on top of the Dan Lanning effect that you just mentioned?
So I think we're in what I like to call a microwave generation, where it gets hot fast, but it cools off fast as well. So I think that with a lot of these kids, I think it's more so what have you done for me lately? When you look at the class of 2025, they were born in 2007. By the time 2013 rolled around, they were only 6 or 7 years old. Most college football fans wake up around the time they're 10, so all they're seeing is 2015 and better. And so when you look at that, it kind of diminishes a little bit of what Oregon was able to do in the mid 2000s all the way up to the mid 2010s. But I think that by being able to have a young coach who's really in tune with the culture, the uniforms never do them any injustice, excuse me. Like the uniforms always help. And I just think that having that big Nike brand and understanding who Phil Knight is, which a lot of guys do, I think it really helps Oregon a ton.
I love what you just said. Most college football fans wake up when they become 10 years old. Like at that point, you kind of get a gauge for who different teams are across the landscape. And like you said, if I can take a visit to Eugene, Oregon, and try on those icy all whites, or maybe it's the highlighter yellows, I'm like, yeah, for my Instagram, I'm absolutely taking a picture there and taking a visit there, and maybe giving a second thought to Oregon. LSU, we talked about them a little bit. Number one team right now in our On3 industry team recruiting rankings for 2025. What is LSU doing well to be able to make the statement they're making right now? I think they have 3 players that are tops their position right now in the boat.
Yeah, I think when you look at this, so now this is where the recency bias really helps you. When you look at the guys who are popping in the league right now, like not even going back to a guy like a Honey Badger, let's look at the number 1 receiver in the league or the top 2 receivers in the league, depending on who you ask, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. You look at that 2019 LSU team where you got Joe Burrow, where you have all of these guys, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you've got the 2 Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. These guys have proven and elevated LSU to a level where it doesn't matter what happened last year. We know this is somewhere that we've seen with our own 2 eyes that you can be successful at if you have the right people. When you look at what they were able to do with Jaden Daniels, he leaves Arizona State. They clean out his locker for him. You basically call him trash, and then he goes, but wins the Heisman in the offense. So, of course, Bryce Underwood, the number 1, like, if that guy can do it, why can't I? Decorian Moore, the number 1 wide receiver, when you look at building a battery, that's exactly what you want. And I think LSU really has it. And shout out to Brian Kelly at LSU, because he gets down there, he has that weird accent, and he's trying to talk Southern, and he's dancing with the recruits. But what I saw was effort. And I saw that he was willing to maybe step out of his comfort zone in order to endear himself to a region where you have to be successful in order to be successful in college football. So I think that LSU has really taken to basically their home territory and kind of expanding their imprint using their NFL connections.
Yeah, I mean, if you can put just a fence around Louisiana if you're LSU and just grab at least like half of that top talent, you in theory should be in pretty good shape going forward to win a lot of football games. Now, team that's won a lot of football games over the course of the last couple of years, the Georgia Bulldogs. They're just doing Georgia things right now. Are they benefiting a little bit from the Nick Saban retirement and kind of being that perceived top dog in the SEC right now?
Yeah, I think you have to. When you think about who has the best track record lately, when we talk about the recency bias again, Georgia has been that team. And they're the only team that's won that national championship that has it going the same way they do now. Like Michigan, I really saw if Harbaugh was able to stay at Michigan, then yes, I thought it could have been a little different. But being that Harbaugh's gone, being that Saban's gone, being that Day hasn't done it yet, you got to look at Kirby Smart as being head honcho when it comes to college football coaches. And Georgia just has a program that's churning out NFL guys. It's a popular place to be. You look up, you see Quavo from the Migos on the sideline, and Kirby Smart is not afraid to get his hands dirty when it comes to recruiting. And that means going to the high schools that may only have 1 recruit. He's willing to go there just to build upon that relationship in case there is a 5-star in 2 to 3 years. For example, there is a training facility in Alabama called Madhouse, Montgomery. Shout out to Tracy Varner and the guys over there. But at Madhouse, they don't have a big-time 2025 recruit. But Kirby Smart still landed a helicopter there with his whole staff to say, hey, we're just making sure that you know that when those guys come through, Georgia's the place for them. And I think those efforts and being able to be relentless on the recruiting trail and the way Kirby Smart goes about it is the reason that Georgia is who they are right now.
I love the helicopter videos. Anytime those pop up somewhere, I'm like, dude, if I'm a recruit, if I'm a high school senior and all my friends see a helicopter landing on our track or wherever you're at, like I'm at least giving them a visit, if not maybe thinking pretty hard about making a pledge there. Auburn, obviously a place that you're really familiar with. Hugh Freeze is a dog on the recruiting trail, man. I mean, what's the momentum they have right now? Last year wasn't the year I think that they wanted to have. It was still progress. Year 2, I'm sure, will be a scene in itself. What are folks saying about them on the recruiting trail right now, specifically recruits?
Auburn is a brand that needs to be revived, and I think now you're at the – and what I mean by that is a lot of these kids didn't get to see Cam Newton. When you talk about the age, they don't really remember Cam Newton being the player that he was the same way that you and I do. But they know the brand. They know that Auburn is a Power 5 school, SEC school that's an hour from Atlanta based on where you live in Atlanta. Like if you live in College Park, where I'm from, it only takes you. Auburn is closer than Georgia. They also see a coach that is relentless recruiting. Hugh Freeze involved. If you look at all of the top guys that Auburn signed last year, the majority of them said Hugh Freeze was a major, major influence in their recruitment. And I think when you think about what Brian Harsin, his style of recruiting, Auburn's former coach, it was night and day. He ran the program more as a CEO. He wasn't the type of guy that wanted to talk to recruits all day. Hugh Freeze wants to talk football. Like, that's what he wants to do. And it kind of shines when he's able to get on the phone with recruits and he's able to talk to parents. So now when you think about the color scheme that Auburn has, the traditional jerseys, the proximity to really good, fertile recruiting grounds, I think that Auburn is somewhere that is over years past had been overlooked. But now when you see 5-stars start to go, when you see you see how they play Alabama, you're able to sell that with a couple more guys like you, that game becomes a 2-touchdown victory. And if somebody goes for it, then I think that's what you're seeing with the revival and recruiting in Auburn.
It really feels like a powder keg. I mean, with Hugh Freeze, the way that he's recruiting, and like you said, the way that they played Alabama so tough, they played Georgia down to the final possession. Like, if they get a couple more guys up there and get that talent level where they want it to be, like, look out, they could be one of those major players in the SEC. Phillip, last question for you, man. We talked about Auburn. Alabama, obviously. I think a lot of people just have question marks about Kalen DeBoer and how he's going to recruit. It was obviously massive being able to get a recommitment from Ryan Williams, who decommitted after Nick Saban retired. What are folks saying on the recruiting trail about Kalen DeBoer and his efforts so far in Tuscaloosa?
They're saying give him a chance. Multiple guys that I've had on the 5-star flex off the record that some of those are edited heavily because sometimes people get so comfortable they say some things that they may not want out yet. But Caleb DeBoer is doing work. There are going to be some guys that show up on the show that have already committed to getting Alabama official visits that they don't want out yet. But I'm telling you, Kalen DeBoer is a guy who has the offensive mind that's attractive to offensive recruits, and he believes in making sure that the defense is able to play freely, from what I understand. So when you're talking to guys who are supremely athletic and who want to be able to show their skills and play fast without having to do a chemistry equation before they go to where they need to go to make a tackle, that's very attractive, and I think that he's going to do well in the Southeast.
Duke's the scoop, baby. Man, I'm so fired up to be working with you. I'm so pumped. Thank you for making time to jump on this show. We were trying to get you on record.
JD, can I get 30 seconds, JD?
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So, to everybody, this is what I want you to do. Go look at JD Piquel's high school highlights, and you will see why I will no longer call him JD Piquel. I will call him TD Piquel for touchdown, because this man balls. Straight up, JD. Hey, man, look, love you, dog. We'll talk soon.
100%, bro. I appreciate that. The Venmo is on its way for that quick plug, brother. I appreciate you, man. I'll do it again real soon.
Hey, bro.
Phillip Dukes. Hey, go check out 5-Star Flex on the On3 Recruits channel. Just between him and Josh Newberg, it's just banger after banger over there on that channel. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also, be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.